So they planned on, how do we change history? So they tried to hire historians, and they said absolutely not. We won't be a part of this. So they created their own stable of historians. Their goal, ultimately, reading these minutes, was to push atheism and to push socialism on our youth. Do you guys know how many millennials support socialism? You guys watched how this has slowly crept in, how atheism has crept in? This is all a part of this new world order scheme that they're pushing on our youth, that they're brainwashing our youth with, that they brainwashed me with.
Welcome back, friends. This is going to be a very lengthy, detailed video, but I think it's extremely important. I've been eager to make this one ever since the Washington Post published the hit piece titled, "2 years after Pizzagate showed the dangers of hateful conspiracies, they're still rampant on YouTube." I have a personal connection to this article, which was published on December 10th, because SGT report is specifically mentioned in it, way down towards the end of the piece. On November 26th, I received a direct message on Twitter from Mike Cernovich, who I've never spoken with, and Mike wrote, "Hi Sean, a guy at WaPo, who has generally been fair, asked if I had your email. He has a question about what happened to your YouTube." My spidey senses were immediately tingling. The only reason Bezos' blog would want to contact me would be to hang me out to dry, I immediately concluded. So I responded to Mike saying, "Thanks for the note, not a fan of theirs, so it's hard to see an upside in corresponding with him about it. All the best to you and your family," to which Mike responded, "God bless." But at 9:51 a.m. on Monday, November 26th, I received the following email from Craig Timberg. "Good morning. This is Craig Timberg, a reporter at the Washington Post. I'm working on a story about how tech platforms deal with alternative media, etc. I see that YouTube kicked you off last summer, then fairly quickly restored your channel. I'd love to hear what happened. Is there a number where I could call you? Many thanks. Best, Craig Timberg, National Technology Reporter, The Washington Post." Yep, the same Craig Timberg whose name would appear as the lead reporter among 4 names in the byline of the hit piece titled, "2 years after Pizzagate showed the dangers of hateful conspiracies, they're still rampant on YouTube," which was published just 2 weeks later. I have all of the email exchanges between Craig and I, which illustrate the duplicity and disingenuous way these mainstream mockingbirds go about their mercenary-for-hire style of operating. There are powerful forces at work. There is a gigantic spiritual awakening taking place right now as we speak, and there are powerful forces trying to circumvent and stop that awakening. Over just the past week, a first has happened to me. I was contacted by 2 different doctors, MDs, who wanted to share their personal stories of their dramatic awakenings to the crimes of Rockefeller Big Medicine. Both are vocal on their local stages with friends and colleagues, but both are also fully aware that going public with their full identities would likely lead to career-ending hit pieces by the likes of WaPo mockingbirds like Craig Timberg and his ilk. So for the sake of their protection, we'll call them both Dr. B, since that is the initial of the first name of one and the last name of the other. One is a male, the other a female. The male Dr. B is a radiation oncologist who reached out to me through Dr. Dave Janda. We spoke on the phone and by email, and he told me his awakening came by way of Western medicine treatments for cancer. "Oh my goodness," he wrote. "The diabolical foundations of modern medicine and cancer treatment dating back to the Carnegie, Rockefellers, and Flexner report are chilling." Friends, Abraham Flexner was not a doctor, but a school teacher and educational theorist, according to cancertutor.com. In 1910, he published the medical education in the United States and Canada, known as the Flexner Report, which elevated the importance of German educational models in the teaching of medicine. The basic outline is this: the progression of peddling pharmaceuticals, which began as byproducts of oil refinement, creating a culture that enabled the monetization of medicine, leading to the creation of drugs to treat symptoms and only rarely treat the actual cause. Plus, drugs create their own symptoms, sometimes requiring additional drugs to offset the ill effects, thereby creating a new Rockefeller Big Pharma style of Western medicine that for the most part has become tone deaf to the oath it claims to uphold, the Hippocratic Oath. The team at cancertutor.com concludes that Flexner paved the way for the overthrow of whole body health by making scientific research, drug development, and training alone the only desirable and credible approach to human wellness. Okay, stick with me, friends. Something very powerful is happening here. As I stated, in all of my years of trying to report the truth about the controllers of this world and their satanic agenda to control humanity, I have never been contacted by two highly trained Western medicine MDs in just 1 week, both describing their dramatic awakenings. And by the way, this week I also heard from a Silicon Valley insider by the name of Drew. The Great Awakening is not only real, it is accelerating. Now, before I get to the story of female Dr. B, which is one of the most powerful personal awakening testimonies I have ever heard, I need to share this with you because it all connects. Yes, all the way back to the WaPo hit piece, which begins a year after YouTube's chief executive promised to curb problematic videos. It continues to harbor and even recommend hateful, conspiratorial videos, allowing racists, anti-Semites, and proponents of other extremist views to use the platform as an online library for spreading their ideas. Friends, the title of that article includes the word Pizzagate, which CNN also attempted to debunk with a hit piece of their own.
October 30th, a Clinton-hating, Trump-loving Twitterer claimed a police source said Clinton was at the center of a pedophilia ring. Others latched onto this, seemingly hoping it was true, scouring dark corners of the web for possible clues. This is how conspiracy theories are threaded together, lie by lie.
And what these mockingbirds are always careful to avoid is that the investigations by alternative media and citizen researchers was sparked by the highly suspicious, pedo-word-filled, leaked emails between John Podesta and his colleagues. The same John Podesta who in 2011 was called a world-class, underage sex slave op cover-upper defending unspeakable dregs by Andrew Breitbart. So is Andrew Breitbart also just a racist, hate-filled extremist? Or was he ahead of his time? Why is it that WaPo and CNN label it extreme to be concerned about the welfare of children and the plight of human and child sex trafficking, while celebrating the exploitation of 11-year-old boys like this one? Meet Desmond.
No, please. Do you do ketamine on the couch?
Do it. You're an idiot.
Kid, what has this world come to? It's come to a world where drag kids actually exist.
And people do ketamine on a couch.
I began watching this video from Hypocrite yesterday. It's titled Desmond and the Party Monster, and I'll link it below. The video was posted on the Just Another YouTube Uploader channel, and it's deeply disturbing. The 11-year-old Desmond, a drag queen kid, has been celebrated by mockingbirds like the Huffington Post, ABC News, and Good Morning America, which describes the child as trailblazing.
Please welcome Desmond Napolis, a.k.a. Desmond is amazing.
It's moments like these on Good Morning America that call to mind the quote from Krishnamurti. It is no measure of mental health to be well-adjusted in a profoundly sick society. But back to Desmond and the Party Monster. You'll have to watch it. It may be considered extremist to point out this fact, but in this video, a very sleepy, appearing not to be entirely sober Desmond appears with Michael Alig, the one on the left. The same Michael Alig who was portrayed in the deeply dark film Party Monster.
Michael was a club kid in the late 80s, early 90s. He got hooked on drugs. His life spiraled out of control. He ended up living in sort of a flop house with a bunch of other party kids, and including his drug dealer that he had move in. He got indebted to his drug dealer for thousands of dollars, and one day his drug dealer got sick of being put off and came to collect. Michael and another one of the roommates, a guy who they called Freeze, murdered the drug dealer who went by the name Angel. So what they did was they bashed him over the head with a hammer a few times, put a pillow over his face to suffocate him. And then this part's a little bit contentious, but according to Freeze, Michael filled up a syringe with Drano and injected Drano into Angel's veins, as well as shot Drano into his mouth and then duct taped his mouth shut.
Now, why on earth would Desmond's mother allow her child to be in that room on camera with Michael Alig? Hypocrite has a lucid and compelling theory. Watch the video. Oh, and by the way, the artwork behind Desmond features part of the word Rohypnol, the date rape drug, the perfect environment for an 11-year-old boy. Why isn't this content attacked by Washington Post as being extremist? Why does YouTube allow this content and the exploitation of a child on their platform? And why does Good Morning America gleefully promote it and profit from the exploitation of this child on the ABC television network?
Desmond, you're one of the youngest and first drag queen/kids, and I've heard
Remember when I told you something very powerful was happening? Well, how's this for serendipity? What is the statistical likelihood of this having happened as I watched Desmond and the Party Monster? I began watching the video Saturday as I was evaluating it for sharing it on my site, thephaser.com. And in real time, at the 17:30 mark in this video, this sentence was spoken.
But he kind of swoops in and definitely intercepts whatever bean it was that Desmond was about to spill.
And this is the God's honest 100% truth. At the very moment I, Hypocrite, said,
whatever bean it was that Desmond was about to spill,
I glanced over at the TV, which was on in our living room with the volume turned all the way down, and saw this.
Whatever bean it was
a commercial for pet adoption, which I've never seen before, and I had to pause the TV and capture this to show you. And guess what the end slate for the commercial read? Save them all. Dogs, like children, need to be protected, cared for, and in the cases of those which are abused, saved. But it seems dogs get a lot more play in our society than children do. I think there is something very powerful in play here, friends, and it's spiritual in nature. And that's exactly what the female Dr. B has come to conclude. She was kind enough to send me the audio from one of the most powerful emotional testimonies I've ever heard. She was asked to speak at her church, and though I can't share the entire speech here, I want to play a few portions.
I was an atheist for 20 years. I was very much science. Science is correct. Evolution. Didn't believe in the supernatural. Didn't believe in the spiritual. Didn't believe in the devil. Didn't believe in evil. Had sort of an elitist, I know better, just frankly an ignorant position. And I at that time would laugh at Christianity.
As a pathologist, she was confronted with the aftermath of abortions. Buckets of baby parts would be delivered to her department for examination, reducing her to tears.
I would cry and I would tell the babies that I loved them and that I'm so sorry that this happened to them and that I'm so sorry our world was like this. And I would hold their little clenched fists and their little faces, that you could see their little faces in pain. And
she would perform funerals for these little souls all alone during her awakening. And then she discovered the Podesta emails. You know, the ones WaPo dismisses and CNN claims only they are allowed to read.
It's illegal to possess these stolen documents. It's different for the media. So everything you learn about this, you're learning from us.
That's when the DNC emails and the Podesta emails came out. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with what was in those emails, but that was my first eye-opening experience. I read those emails. I read the code words they used. I read what spirit cooking was. I researched it. I researched what these terms were. I researched who's this Moloch guy? Why are they sacrificing chickens to Moloch? What is this? And I realized that there was a child trafficking element that was involved in our government and that was exposed in these emails. I realized what spirit cooking was, that it was a Luciferian ritual. I realized that they're openly bragging about sacrificing to Moloch, and I lost it. Broke down crying. Evil's real. I've seen evil. They're doing this. Doesn't matter what I believe. Doesn't matter if I don't think it's real. They think that by doing these rituals, by doing sacrifices, by hurting children, that they're getting some spiritual power out of it. And these Luciferians, I just, what is this mystery occult religion that's involved in all of this? And so I really, really started researching, and I was enraged. I learned about the promotion of the abortion movement, of Roe versus Wade, when we get into people like Prescott Bush and Margaret Sanger and the Rockefellers, and their funding of the women's liberation movement, and the CIA funding people like Gloria Steinem. And I realized that this was pushed. This was pushed on us to accept it. And yes, they see it as a sacrifice to Moloch. And I was enraged.
And Dr. B tells me that the medical notes that get delivered to her with the buckets of baby parts include the surgical requisition paperwork in which the aborted babies are labeled as ASAP, which stands for Acute Situational Anxiety of Pregnancy. And Dr. B tells me that in today's increasingly inhospitable to Christian views Western medical schools, if you want to be an obstetrician or gynecologist, you will be pressured to perform abortions as part of your residency, all in the name of women's health. And if you resist, in many programs, your life as a resident will be made very, very difficult. Okay, so this video is getting long. Much longer than I originally intended, when all I wanted to do was share the email exchanges between WaPo national technology reporter Craig Timberg and me, thereby exposing the duplicity with which Timberg and presumably his associates at WaPo conduct their business of reporting, which led to that very brief mention of SGT report in that hit piece. But as I was writing this video and recording it, and I turned to those emails, they're very dry, and it's stuff you've all heard me say before about the New American article, citing what NYPD insiders claim to have seen on Anthony Weiner's laptop. I shared that specific information and links with Craig Timberg. But the bottom line is this. Craig originally approached me claiming to want to know why YouTube was unfairly targeting certain people. But that's not the article they wrote. The article they wrote was a hit piece to try to dissuade people from looking into the crimes of high-level politicians that might potentially be involved in child sex trafficking and pedophilia. And in fact, as it relates to me, Craig's question isn't why was I unfairly targeted? Craig's question was, why did YouTube allow my channel to come back at all? And these are the enemies of our liberties, the mockingbird mercenaries who are paid to target truth. And that's the reason folks are turning increasingly to the alternative news media, the truth media. All the links to the articles I mentioned here will be below this video. Thanks for tuning in, and for real news 24/7, visit us at sgtreport.com.
The word I have heard is that several months ago, George W. Bush had been in contact with Trump, but essentially flipped.